Now ISO, this is our third of our three pillars, and it really does take second place to the other two. We need to get the exposure and the shutter speed balanced. Whatever priority you think is going on, ISO is there as backup very much. It's the film speed. In the days of film, if you're that old, we used to buy different films with different speeds on, and typically they were 100 was the ISO value or the ASA value of a film. And but there were scenarios where you would buy a faster film because you knew that you needed to be able to push it a bit further, and that's what ISO is doing. So for example, you're in a house and you're taking photos, and as we've mentioned on another tutorial, or certainly in writing on a blog post, if I set this up to 100 on my zoom, then this is a 5D, so it's a full frame. But if this was a 30D, a 50D, 500D, with Canon there is a 1.6 crop factor. Have a look at the crop factor tutorial if you're not sure what that means. But what it simply means is that at 100 on here, I'm actually shooting at 160. Now if I'm taking photos indoors, I really need, assuming I haven't got a flash, I really should be at kind of 160th or even 200th if I'm not too steady at holding this. Now I'm pretty sure with an ISO value of 100, which is your basic, that's the best you can get, the better quality, the lower that number, the better quality. The higher it goes, the more grainy. But there are reasons when we need to compensate, and this would be one of them. So I'm in the house, I'm thinking, right, I need this at 1/60th of a second. I can't get my aperture any lower because the lens that I've got restricts me. I can't get any lower than 5.6, and actually on my needle on here and in here, I'm way down. What do? I've got a dark picture. Now a flash is one scenario that would get you out, you know, one option that would get you out of that. But I have an ISO button on here, and I can push this up, I can turn a dial, and this value will increase, and it's like a brightness button, to put it crudely. You've got it set, you can't get it any better. You would increase your ISO, and it's like adding a brightness button over the front of this that is just lifting everything. Now, as I say, there is a compromise with that, and as you increase that ISO value, you will get more grain, more noise in your picture. That's more of an issue in dark, with a black background and things. You start to see little coloured dots in it. I'll put a photo up just to show you what I mean by that, and we'll have another area of the site talking about noise. But if that's your only option, it's better to get that photo like that and push up the ISO than anything else. Other options you can do, let's think about it. Could you back off from 100th zoom? Can you take that back? Can you get closer to your subject and with a wider angle? That means your shutter speed can come down. It also means that your aperture, if it's on one like this that varies, will actually increase the gap. The number will decrease. So that's another option, but really I'm just trying to say what ISO is doing at this stage. Consider it to be a brightness level. Now, I would always try and keep ISO as low as possible. There are scenarios where you might want to add some noise and make it a bit grainy, but you can do that in post-production anyway. So try and keep that ISO value low as possible. So when you're setting up an image, if you've got time to do it and compose it, always start down at 100. If you think you're pushing it a bit, maybe set it to 250 as your starting point, and then worry about your aperture and your shutter speed. Get them as balanced as you can, and then bring in your ISO and increase it as you need. Now, every camera is different, and this is one of the things that you will notice will really improve with newer cameras as they develop. I used to have a 300D, and I couldn't push that ISO very much at all before it really started to get noisy. On the 5D Mark III that I've got here, I can push that way up. I've shot some concerts and events and thought, let's give this a go. And I've been amazed at how high I can push that, which means I can keep my shutter speed up and not get blurry photos at a concert or an event like that. So it really is useful to master, but ISO is not your starting point. Always aperture and shutter will be one of your priorities, then you balance the other, and then ISO is brought in as a level. Now, I hope this makes sense. I'm keen to stop at this point, let you have a go at this, and I'm going to be asking a few friends to look at this and tell me what they think. And I guess if this video is still on there, then it worked and we've done a good job. So yeah, enjoy, go try and master this. I really encourage you to get your heads around this, instead of just sticking it on auto and ignorantly not knowing what is going on in your camera. Or maybe stick it on auto, take your picture and just see what the settings are at. Start to understand it a bit. A lot of magazines, photography magazines, actually spell out what the shutter speed, what the aperture is. Start studying a bit. Okay, so that wildlife shot he did then, he'd got an ISO of 1000. That's interesting. That landscape shot, you know, he shot it with a 1 second exposure. You'll start to build up and understand this, and I'll try and put some guides on here that clarify it a little bit more. Okay, talking about exposure, I just spotted on the camera that the sun's come out, and because I'm shooting manually here, I'm getting a bit bright, but hopefully that will be okay to watch on video. And yeah, enjoy. See you in a minute.